Commander Vex'tora Nyxar drummed her 4 fingers against the polished surface of her command desk, each tap echoing through the otherwise silent observation deck. The Galactic Unity Academy's newest batch of cadets had arrived yesterday, and as Director of Interspecies Training, she was tasked with reviewing their files before tomorrow's orientation. "Computer, display next applicant," she said, her voice carrying the distinct melodic undertones of her Archelian heritage. The holographic display flickered, revealing a new file. Vex'tora nearly spat out her steaming cup of TL kava. "A human? They've sent us a human?" Her violet eyes widened as she scanned the details. "Terran. From Earth. Gravity 9.8 ms2. Atmospheric composition primarily nitrogen and oxygen." She paused. "Computer, confirm classification. Planet Earth, classified as Deathworld Category 4. The computer responded in its monotone voice. "Wonderful. Just wonderful," Vex'tora muttered, running a hand over her scaled crest. The council finally lost what little sense they had left. "I heard that tone," said a voice from the doorway. Admiral Zul Khan Praxi, a towering Vexillian with 6 arms and skin like polished obsidian, entered the room. His facial tentacles twitched with amusement. "You've reached the human's file, I see." "You knew about this," Vex'tora accused. "Of course I knew. I approved the application," Zul Khan replied, seeming far too pleased with himself. Cadet Mira Kaplan, top of her class at the Terran Space Academy. Exceptional tactical thinking. Remarkable physical abilities. Yes, I'm sure she's absolutely marvelous at surviving hellish conditions and breaking things," Vex'tora said with a heavy dose of sarcasm. "That's what humans do, isn't it? They come from a planet trying to kill them at every turn, so they learn to kill it back. Hardly the diplomatic temperament we cultivate here." Zul Khan's deep laughter filled the room. "Oh, Vex, you haven't changed since our academy days. Still convinced the galaxy should function according to your neat little classification systems." "Those classification systems exist for a reason," she huffed. "Deathworlders have different instincts, different reactions to stress, different ideas about what constitutes reasonable force. Which is precisely why having one at the academy could be valuable," Zul Khan countered. "The galaxy is changing, old friend. The human territories are expanding. Their trade networks grow more extensive by the cycle. Yet our future diplomatic corps learns to work with them now, in a controlled environment." Vex'tora glared at him. "And if this Mira Kaplan accidentally breaks one of our delicate Florian cadets in half? What then?" "Then we'll have a valuable teaching moment about interspecies differences," Zul Khan said with infuriating calm. "Besides, the human has excellent control. It's in her psychological profile." "Fine," Vex'tora conceded, knowing when she was beaten. "But she's your responsibility, Zul. When this goes horribly wrong, and it will go horribly wrong, I'll be there to say I told you so with great satisfaction." "I wouldn't expect anything less," Zul Khan replied with a grin before exiting the room. Vex'tora returned to the file, studying the image of Cadet Kaplan. The human female appeared unremarkable: 2 arms, 2 legs, brownish skin, dark hair tied back from her face. Nothing that screamed dangerous Deathworld predator. But Vex'tora knew better. She'd studied xenobiology. Those seemingly fragile limbs could generate enough force to break bones. Those flat teeth could still tear through meat. And that brain, that pattern-seeking, risk-calculating, threat-assessing brain never truly rested. "Computer, download all available information on human social customs, stress responses, and dietary requirements," she commanded. If she was going to survive this academic cycle with a Deathworlder on campus, she'd need to be prepared. The next morning, Vex'tora stood before the assembled cadets in the Grand Hall, her formal uniform adorned with the symbols of her rank and achievements. 40 young beings from across the galaxy gazed back at her with various types of eyes, sensory organs, and attention appendages. "Welcome to the Galactic Unity Academy," she began, her voice amplified to reach all corners of the hall. You represent the finest young minds from your respective worlds. You have been chosen because you demonstrated exceptional potential as future diplomats, negotiators, and peacekeepers. Her gaze lingered briefly on the human, who sat with perfect posture in the third row. Cadet Kaplan was paying close attention, her eyes such strange eyes with their white surrounds and dark centers focused intently on Vex'tora. During your 2-year training, you will learn about the complex tapestry of cultures that make up our galactic society. You will master the art of negotiation. You will develop your empathic abilities. She paused for effect. And you will learn to set aside the prejudices and preconceptions of your homeworlds. Several cadets straightened in their seats, as if personally addressed. Good. Let them all think about their biases. Now, I will introduce your primary instructors. Professor Nyxar will teach diplomatic history and precedent. A gelatinous being near the front raised 2 pseudopods in acknowledgement. Dr. Pelnara will instruct you in multi-species psychology. A slender, feathered being nodded. Combat training and self-defense will be led by Master Korgval. At this, a heavily armored, insectoid creature clicked its mandibles together. Combat training? Squeaked a small, furry cadet from the front row. I thought this was a diplomatic academy. It is, Cadet Pippin, Vex'tora responded smoothly. But diplomats often travel to unpredictable environments. Basic self-defense is essential. Additionally, understanding combat principles helps in negotiating ceasefires and peace treaties. She didn't miss the slight smile that appeared on the human's face. Of course, a Deathworlder would appreciate combat training. Finally, I will personally teach advanced negotiation techniques in your 2nd year, assuming you all progress that far. Vex'tora let that ominous note hang in the air before continuing. Now, you will proceed to your assigned dormitories. Room assignments are available on your personal devices. The classes begin tomorrow at first bell. As the cadets filed out, Vex'tora noticed a small group already forming around Cadet Kaplan. A Nevidian with translucent skin, a stocky Borvali, and a serpentine Thraxian seemed particularly interested in the human. Interesting. Perhaps Zul'Khan was right about the diplomatic value of exposure. Commander Nyxar? A soft voice interrupted her thoughts. She turned to find Cadet Kaplan standing before her, hands clasped behind her back in a perfect military rest position. Yes, Cadet. Vex'tora replied, keeping her voice neutral. I wanted to thank you personally for the opportunity to study here, the human said. I understand my acceptance was unusual. Vex'tora studied the cadet, surprised by her directness. Indeed it was. Yours is a rather unique case, Cadet Kaplan. Mira, please, the human offered with what Vex'tora recognized as a smile. Those expressions always looked slightly predatory to her. That would be inappropriate, Cadet, Vex'tora replied stiffly. We maintain formal relationships at the Academy. Of course, Commander. My apologies. The human didn't seem offended. I just wanted you to know that I understand the concerns some might have about accepting a human into the program. I'm here to learn, not to disrupt. Vex'tora felt a twinge of something guilt, perhaps, at her own prejudgment. Your academic records are exceptional, Cadet. You earned your place here. Just remember that not all species share human resilience. Some of your classmates come from low-gravity worlds or have exoskeletons that, while suitable for their environments, might be fragile by your standards. I understand, Commander. I'll be careful. As the human walked away to join her new acquaintances, Vex'tora felt an unexpected sense of curiosity. Perhaps this experiment wouldn't end in disaster after all. That thought lasted precisely 3 days. She did what? Vex'tora's voice rose to a pitch that made the crystal ornaments on her desk vibrate dangerously. Professor Nyxar quivered anxiously, his gelatinous form rippling with distress. The physical training assessment, Commander. Master Korgval had the cadets demonstrate their baseline capabilities. When it was Cadet Kaplan's turn, she exceeded expectations. Fine exceeded expectations, Professor, Vex'tora said through clenched teeth. She completed the obstacle course in 1/3 the expected time. Then she performed a series of physical feats that Nyxar paused, searching for the right words. Let's just say several cadets fainted. The Florian representative had to be removed to the medical bay with acute stress response. I knew it, Vex'tora hissed. I told Zulkan this would happen. Where is the human now? In her dormitory, I believe. She seemed quite distressed about the incident. That gave Vex'tora pause. Distressed? Why would she be distressed? She wasn't the one carted off to medical. Nyxar's central eye blinked slowly. She said she hadn't meant to frighten anyone. She thought she was simply following instructions to demonstrate her physical capabilities. When she realized the effect it had on the others, she became quite apologetic. Asham. Vex'tora considered this information. Thank you, Professor. I'll address the situation. After Nyxar departed, Vex'tora called up the footage from the training session. What she saw made her jaw drop. Cadet Kaplan moved with a fluid grace that belied the incredible power in her limbs. She scaled vertical walls, leapt gaps that should have been impossible, lifted weights that would challenge even a Borvali, and demonstrated combat techniques that were both precise and terrifying. No wonder the other cadets had been frightened. It was like watching a predator in action. But then Vex'tora noticed something else. The human wasn't showing off. Her expression remained focused, serious. She was simply responding to Master Korg Val's instructions. And when she noticed the reactions of her classmates, the fear, the shock, her expression changed to one of confusion, then dismay. Well, Vex'tora murmured. Perhaps our Deathworlder has more self-awareness than I gave her credit for. She switched off the display and headed to the dormitory levels. Vex'tora found Cadet Kaplan in one of the Academy's meditation gardens, sitting alone on a bench beneath a luminescent tree. The human was so still, she might have been a statue, except for the steady rise and fall of her chest. Cadet Kaplan, Vex'tora announced her presence. The human stood immediately, assuming a formal stance. Commander Nyxar. At ease, Cadet. I'm not here officially. Vex'tora sat on the bench and gestured for the human to join her. I reviewed the footage from your physical assessment. I apologize for the disruption, Commander, Mira said, her voice tight. I should have considered how my performance might appear to others. Perhaps, Vex'tora agreed. But Master Korg Val asked for a demonstration of your abilities. You complied. I scared them, Mira said simply. I saw their faces. The Nevidian cadet Lyrith, his skin went completely transparent. And poor Tilly Florian. I heard she had to be sedated. Vex'tora studied the human's face, fascinated by the emotional display. She'd read about human expressions, but seeing them up close was different. This was genuine distress. You come from a world with higher gravity, denser atmosphere, and more extreme temperature variations than most of your classmates, Vex'tora said. Your species evolved to survive conditions that would kill many of them instantly. Your physical advantages are simply a fact of your biology. But that doesn't mean I should terrify my classmates with them, Mira countered. I came here to learn diplomacy, Commander. Making others fear me is counterproductive. Vex'tora felt a smile tugging at her mandibles. An excellent observation, Cadet. And what do you propose to do about it? Mira thought for a moment. I need to be more mindful of how I present myself. Show them that my abilities aren't a threat to them. She paused. Maybe I could offer to help some of the physically weaker cadets with their training? Use my strength as a resource, not a weapon. An interesting approach, Vex'tora admitted. Though some may still be too intimidated to accept your help. Then I'll start with those who aren't, Mira said with determination. Cadet Drex seemed fascinated rather than frightened. And the Thraxian twins kept asking questions after class. Very well, Cadet. You have my permission to establish a supplementary training group. But Vex'tora held up a cautionary finger. All sessions must be supervised by either myself or Master Korgval until further notice. Thank you, Commander. Mira's face brightened with what Vex'tora recognized as a genuine smile, not the predatory one she'd imagined earlier. As Vex'tora left the garden, she found Admiral Zul'Kan waiting in the corridor, his facial tentacles writhing with amusement. Not a word, Zul, she warned. Not one word. I wasn't going to say anything, he replied innocently. Except perhaps that your Deathworlder seems to be adapting rather well. She terrified half the class. And now she's finding ways to turn that into a teaching opportunity, Zul'Kan pointed out. Isn't that exactly what we want in a diplomat? The ability to transform challenges into advantages? Vex'tora made a rude gesture with her third hand, one that translated across most species as anatomically impossible. I still think this experiment is likely to end in disaster, he noted, Zul'Kan said cheerfully. But I think you'll find humans are full of surprises. Little did either of them know just how prophetic those words would prove to be. 3 months into the academic cycle, Vex'tora found herself revising many of her preconceptions about humans. Cadet Kaplan's supplementary training sessions had become surprisingly popular. What began as curiosity from a few brave cadets had evolved into a regular gathering of nearly half the class. The human-taught techniques modified to work with different body types, showing remarkable insight into xenophysiology. Remarkable progress, Admiral Zul'Kan commented as they observed a session through the training room's one-way viewing panel. Inside, Mira was demonstrating a defensive maneuver to a group that included the once terrified Florian cadet. She's certainly made herself useful, Vex'tora admitted grudgingly. Though I'm still waiting for the inevitable disaster. Zul'Kan's facial tentacles twitched with amusement. You really should work on that pessimism, Vex. I prefer to call it pragmatism, she retorted. Deathworlders are unpredictable. Just when you think you understand them, they do something completely unexpected. As if summoned by her words, an alarm blared through the academy halls. Attention all personnel. Security breach in Sector 7. This is not a drill. Repeat, this is not a drill. Vex'tora and Zul'Kan exchanged alarmed glances. Sector 7? That's the Planetary Defense Grid Control Center, Vex'tora said, already moving toward the exit. The cadets, Zul'Kan reminded her, gesturing toward the training room. Vex'tora hesitated. Protocol dictated all cadets should be secured during an emergency. But there was no time. Computer, activate emergency lockdown in training room 3. Authorization, Nyxar Alpha 97. Acknowledged, the computer responded. Training room 3 secured. She turned to Zul'Kan. That should keep them safe until we assess the situation. They raced through the corridors, passing security personnel moving with purpose towards Sector 7. When they arrived at the control center's antechamber, they found chaos. Security Chief Granok, a barrel-chested Urvalan with skin like polished granite, was coordinating the response. Intruders bypassed 3 security checkpoints, he reported grimly. They've taken hostages inside the control room. How many? Zul'Kan demanded. 4 intruders, 6 hostages. Staff members who were on duty. Species identification, Vex'tora asked. Krivax mercenaries, Granok replied with a scowl. Armed and dangerous. Vex'tora felt her blood run cold. The Krivax were notorious throughout the sector reptilian warriors who sold their services to the highest bidder. They were known for their ruthless efficiency and complete disregard for galactic law. Demands? Zul'Kan asked. They want access to the defense grid controls. They've threatened to execute a hostage every 10 minutes until we comply. Granok checked his chronometer. We have 7 minutes until the first deadline. We cannot give them control of the grid, Vex'tora stated flatly. It protects not just the Academy but the entire planetary system. I'm aware, Granok growled. We're assembling a tactical team, but they won't be ready in time for the first deadline. Then we need to stall, Zul'Kan said. A commotion at the entrance to the antechamber drew their attention. Security officers were restraining someone, a cadet. "Let me through. I can help." It was Mira Kaplan, struggling against the grip of two officers twice her size. "Cadet Kaplan?" Vex'tora strode over. "How did you get out of the training room?" Mira stopped struggling. "Emergency ventilation shaft, Commander. I heard the alarm and came to offer assistance." "You climbed through the ventilation system?" Vex'tora was incredulous. "Yes, Ma, I am. Standard procedure on Earth stations during lockdowns: always know your emergency exits." "This is not an Earth station, Cadet, and you are in violation of lockdown protocols," Vex'tora said sternly. "With respect, Commander, I have relevant experience." Mira's voice was steady, professional. "Before joining the Space Academy, I served 2 years with the Terran Emergency Response Unit. I'm trained in hostage negotiations and tactical intervention." Zul'Kan and Vex'tora exchanged glances. "This is not a cadet exercise," Granok interjected. "These are Krivax mercenaries." "I've dealt with Krivax before," Mira countered, surprising them all. "During the Proxima Station incident last year." Vex'tora narrowed her eyes. "That's not in your file. A classified operation, Ma AM. But Admiral Zul'Kan can verify my involvement through Terran Command." All eyes turned to Zul'Kan, who looked equally surprised. "I'll need to make a call." While Zul'Kan stepped away to communicate with Terran authorities, Vex'tora studied the human cadet. There was something different about her now, a focused intensity that hadn't been present before. 5 minutes until the deadline, Granok reminded them. Zul'Kan returned, his expression grave, terrified. Cadet Kaplan was part of a specialized response team during the Proxima incident. "Then why is she here, at a diplomatic academy?" Vex'tora demanded. "Career change," Mira said simply. "I decided I'd rather prevent crises than respond to them." "Well, prevention has failed in this case," Granok muttered. "What exactly are you proposing, Cadet?" Vex'tora asked. "The ventilation system," Mira explained. "It runs through the control room. I can access it without being detected." "And then what? Take on 4 armed Krivax by yourself?" Granok scoffed. "No, that would be suicide," Mira replied calmly. "But I can gather intelligence, hostage positions, weapons, potential avenues for intervention. And I can place these." She reached into her pocket and pulled out small metal spheres. "Sonic disruptors. Non-lethal, but they'll disorient the Krivax long enough for your tactical team to enter." "Where did you get those?" Vex'tora demanded. "I made them, in engineering class. Professor Quinn approved the project." Granok looked skeptical. "Those little things will stop a Krivax?" "Their auditory systems are sensitive to specific frequencies," Mira explained. "These are calibrated precisely for Krivax physiology." 3 minutes, a security officer announced. Zul'Kan turned to Vex'tora. "Your call, Commander. This is your academy." Vex'tora felt the weight of the decision. She had been waiting for months for the human to show her true Deathworlder nature. Was this it? But looking at Mira now, she saw not a predator but a professional, someone trained to handle exactly this type of crisis. "Do it," she decided. "But you report everything you see. No heroics." "Understood, Commander," Mira said with a nod. Navigating the ventilation system was almost too easy for Mira. Earth's emergency response training included countless hours in confined spaces, preparing for every possible scenario. The Academy's ductwork was spacious by comparison. She moved silently, using her enhanced strength to control each movement with precision. When she reached the grate overlooking the control room, she paused to assess the situation. 4 Krivax, heavily armed, just as reported. 6 hostages seated on the floor, hands bound. The leader paced in front of a control console, his scaled tail lashing behind him in agitation. 2 minutes until our deadline, he announced to someone over a communication device. If access codes aren't provided, we execute the first hostage. Mira carefully positioned her communicator to transmit visual data back to the security team. Then, with movements so slow they were barely perceptible, she began placing the sonic disruptors at strategic points throughout the ventilation system surrounding the room. "All units in position," came Granok's whispered confirmation through her earpiece. "Awaiting your signal." Mira finished setting the final disruptor and retreated to a safe distance. She checked the hostage positions one last time, confirming none were too close to the Krivax. Then she activated her communicator. "Ready on my mark. 3, 2, 1, execute." She triggered the sonic disruptors. The effect was immediate and dramatic. All 4 Krivax dropped their weapons, clutching at their auditory organs in pain. The security team burst through the doors, quickly securing the mercenaries while medical personnel attended to the hostages. Mira slipped out of the ventilation system and rejoined Vex'tora and Zul'Khan in the antechamber. "Mission accomplished," she reported formally. "All hostages appear uninjured." Vex'tora stared at her with an unreadable expression. "That was impressive, Cadet." "Thank you, Commander." But Vex'tora continued, her voice hardening. "You still violated lockdown protocols. There will be consequences." "I understand, ma'am." Zul'Khan stepped forward. "Perhaps those consequences could include a formal commendation." The cadet did just save 6 lives. "Don't push it, Zul," Vex'tora warned, but there was a hint of amusement in her tone. The following day, Vex'tora called Mira to her office. "Sit down, Cadet," she instructed, gesturing to the chair across from her desk. Mira complied, maintaining perfect posture. "You wanted to see me, Commander?" "I've been reviewing your complete file," Vex'tora said, tapping a datapad. "The uncensored version Admiral Zul'Khan obtained from Terran Command." Mira said nothing, waiting. 3 years with the Emergency Response Unit. Specialized training in crisis intervention. 14 high-risk operations, including the Proxima Station incident. Vex'tora looked up from the pad. "Why didn't you include this in your application to the Academy?" "I wanted to be accepted based on my academic merits, not my combat experience," Mira replied. "I genuinely want to become a diplomat, Commander." Yet when crisis struck, your first instinct was to climb through air ducts and deploy tactical devices. "My first instinct was to help," Mira corrected gently. "I used the skills I had available." Vex'tora leaned back in her chair, considering the human before her. "You know, when I first learned we were accepting a Deathworlder, I expected a barely contained predator. Someone whose instincts would eventually overwhelm their training." "And now?" Mira asked. "Now I wonder if perhaps we've misunderstood humans all along," Vex'tora admitted. "Your physical capabilities are certainly intimidating, but it's how you choose to use them that matters. On Earth, we have a saying, with great power comes great responsibility." "Wise words," Vex'tora acknowledged. "Your actions yesterday saved lives, Cadet Kaplan. But they also demonstrated something important to your fellow students." "What's that, Commander?" "That Deathworld adaptation's strength, speed, tactical thinking can serve diplomatic ends. Peace isn't just maintained through words, but through readiness to protect those who cannot protect themselves." Mira smiled. "That's why I'm here, Commander. To learn how to use all my abilities in service of peace." Vex'tora nodded thoughtfully. "Well, it seems I may have something to learn from you as well, Cadet." She rose from her desk. "Your punishment for violating lockdown protocols will be to develop a comprehensive emergency response training program for all cadets. We've clearly been remiss in that area of their education." "I'd be honored, Commander." As Mira left the office, Vex'tora found herself smiling. Perhaps having a Deathworlder at the Academy wasn't such a disaster after all. 6 months later, the Galactic Unity Academy hosted representatives from 27 member worlds for its annual symposium. The highlight of the event was always the cadet demonstration, where promising students showcased their diplomatic skills. This year, however, featured something new, a practical demonstration of the Academy's enhanced crisis response program, led by Cadet Mira Kaplan. As you can see, Vex'tora explained to the assembled dignitaries, our cadets now train in mixed species teams, leveraging the unique abilities of each member. On the training floor below, Mira directed a group through a complex hostage negotiation scenario. A Nevidian used their transparent skin to gather intelligence undetected. A Thraxian pair utilized their telepathic bond to coordinate from different positions. The once timid Florian cadet employed newly developed confidence to distract a simulated hostile force. Most impressive, commented the Terran ambassador. Especially the integration of species-specific traits. That was Cadet Kaplan's innovation, Zul'Kan explained. She calls it complementary capabilities theory, the idea that what might be a disadvantage in one context becomes an advantage in another. The ambassador nodded. Sounds like she has a bright future in diplomacy. Indeed, Vex'tora agreed. She's taught us all a valuable lesson. And what lesson is that, Commander? Asked a Borvali representative. Vex'tora watched as Mira guided her team through the final phase of the exercise, her movements efficient but careful, always mindful of her strength among her more fragile classmates. That we should not fear what is different, she replied. Whether it comes from a garden world or a death world, true diplomatic talent lies in how we choose to use our inherent abilities. Later, as the demonstration concluded to enthusiastic applause, Vex'tora approached Mira. Well done, Cadet Kaplan. Thank you, Commander. Mira responded with a crisp salute, though the credit belongs to the entire team. A diplomatic answer, Vex'tora noted with amusement. You're learning. Every day, Mira agreed. Though I think my classmates have learned something too. Oh? What's that? Mira smiled. That humans aren't just deathworlders. We're cooperative pack predators by nature. Working together comes as naturally to us as breathing. A valuable insight, Vex'tora acknowledged. One that has changed my perspective considerably. As they watched the mixed group of cadets celebrating their successful demonstration, Admiral Zul'Kan joined them. I believe I'm owed something, Commander, he said to Vex'tora, facial tentacles quivering with barely suppressed glee. Vex'tora sighed dramatically. Fine. You were right. I was wrong. Having a human at the Academy has been educational. I'll accept that as a full apology, Zul'Kan laughed. Don't push your luck, Vex'tora warned, but there was no heat in her words. Mira looked between them, confused. Did I miss something? Just an old bet, Zul'Kan explained. Commander Nyxar was convinced you would cause some terrible diplomatic incident. I suggested you might instead teach us all something valuable. And what was that? Mira asked. Vex'tora gazed thoughtfully at the human cadet, who had defied all her expectations. That perhaps the most important lesson every species needs to learn about deathworlders is not to fear their strength, she said, but to welcome it when it's guided by wisdom, compassion, and a genuine desire for peace. Now who's being diplomatic? Zul'Kan teased. Vex'tora shrugged, her mandibles forming the Archelian equivalent of a smile. What can I say? I learned from the best. As the three of them joined the celebration, news was already spreading throughout the Galactic Diplomatic Corps. If you want a peacekeeper who can actually keep the peace, look no further than the Deathworlders. They might surprise you. And in the years that followed, as Mira Kaplan and her classmates graduated to become some of the most effective diplomats in Galactic Unity history, that lesson was remembered and passed down to each new generation of cadets. Every alien species eventually learns the same lesson about Deathworld cadets. Their greatest strength isn't their physical power, but their adaptability, their ability to transform the very traits that make them dangerous into the qualities that make them exceptional guardians of peace.